Happy task to welcome the minister after many tries to get to this committee. We are studying the subject matter of the estimates. We have the minister with us for an hour. And you'll note that the time for reporting back to the House is passed, so there will be no votes for the committee on the main estimates. As I say to all colleagues at the time when we're doing estimates, humor the chair just a little bit by trying to tie the question to the estimates, which is what the minister is here for. So with that, Minister Anand, please, we look forward to your 5-minute statement. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Opportunity to discuss the main estimates for DND, the Canadian Armed Forces, and the Communication Security Establishment. Comme vous le savez,
as you know, our defense policy, launched in 2017, underscores the importance of having well-funded Canadian forces that are well-equipped and to allow them to defend Canada, North America, and maintain peace worldwide.
Illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine, we have been reminded how vital it is to uphold these commitments, and that is why in Budget 2022, we announced that we would be redoubling our efforts to keep Canada safe and to secure our place in the world through a broad and ambitious range of investments. The roughly $26.8 billion that we are requesting through these main estimates is the first step in this plan, and it will lay the foundation for everything we do to modernize and transform our military over the next fiscal year and to make meaningful investments to shore up Canada's cyber-related capacities as well. Our requests for funding fall broadly into the following categories: operating expenditures, capital expenditures, grants and contributions, and payments going forward to the long-term disability and life insurance plan for members of the CAF. This amount also includes roughly $800 million for the CSE to maintain and bolster Canada's cyber capabilities. Let me start with operating expenditures, Monsieur le Président. Plus de la moitié du financement.
More than half of the funding we have requested in these estimates, over $17.5 billion, is for operating expenditures. This funding will help the CAF carry out its critical missions at home and abroad and work with our international allies and partners to uphold global peace and security.
Support the CAF reconstitution process that General Eyre announced last year, ensuring CAF readiness following the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, a key part of reconstitution is the ongoing work that we are doing to change the culture of our organization and to ensure that those who were affected by sexual misconduct or other harms in the line of duty receive the support that they need. As I announced just last week, I am pleased to note that we have received Madame Arbour's final report, and building on the report to create a more inclusive and safer defense team is a priority. Le rapport de Madame Arbour n'est qu'une.
Madame Arbour's report is just one of several ongoing lines of effort across the defense team.
The work that the Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture is doing to unify and integrate all of our culture change efforts. The support that the Sexual Misconduct Response Center receives to effective team members and provides that support, and our efforts to modernize the military justice system, just to name a few of the initiatives we have. The business of defense clearly covers a wide range of activities, but everything we do comes down to having a force that is ready, that is resilient, and that is well supported at all points in their careers. Et ce financement,
this funding will help us keep building that military force.
Now to capital expenditures. En ce qui concerne les dépenses de capital,
turning towards capital expenditures, through these main estimates, we are requesting almost $6 billion to keep funding several critical procurement projects over the next fiscal year.
Include our Canadian surface combatants, joint support ships, Arctic and offshore patrol ships, armored combat support vehicles as well. And these large multi-year, multi-billion-dollar projects are essential to our success as an organization and are even more important in a geopolitical environment governed by uncertainty, instability, and great power competition. Moving on to grants and contributions, Monsieur le Président, nous demandons également.
We are also requesting $314 million in grants and contributions through these main estimates. Grants and contributions allow us to spur innovation in Canadian industry and academia.
Support organizations outside of defense that provide services for defense team members. Et de faire notre part.
And to do our part to stay engaged internationally.
Funding, we are allocating almost $225 million towards NATO programs like the NATO military budget, security investment program, and other activities. This represents an increase of $63.9 million over last year's main estimates towards our collective defense and security through NATO. We are also providing $447 million towards the CAF long-term disability plan and for optional group life insurance for general officers. Grâce à ce financement, les forces armées canadiennes vont.
Through this funding, the Canadian Armed Forces will keep working with partners to ensure that our people and their families receive the support they need when they are ill and injured, including when they hang up the uniform for the last time.
As I noted earlier, we are requesting roughly $800 million in funding for the communication security establishment. This funding will go towards enhancing CSE's ability to prevent and defend Canadians, Canadian businesses, and our critical infrastructure against cyber attacks. Mr. Chair, it's a pleasure to be with you today. The funding requested in the estimates covered a broad range of investments representing 6.8% increase in yearly spending over last year's main estimates for DND and the CAF. But it is just the beginning. In the months to come, we will be announcing new funding opportunities for defense, including a robust plan to bolster our continental defenses and modernize NORAD in collaboration with our U.S. partners. Et comme le souligne le budget 2020,
and as highlighted in Budget 2022, we have initiated a review and update of our defense policy to make sure we are keeping ahead of our biggest threats now and into the future.
Merci. I am pleased to take your questions.
Thank you, Madam Minister. For our 6-minute round, we're leading off with Mr. Motts, then Mr. Fisher, Normandin, and Blaney. Mr. Motts.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. And on a personal note, thank you for providing me some of those contact information for my constituents in that question from a couple of weeks ago. I appreciate that. Minister, we've just witnessed China harass and act aggressively to our Canadian Aurora long-range maritime patrol aircraft and do the same sort of aggressive behavior toward an Australian P-8 maritime patrol aircraft. Where are we in the Indo-Pacific strategy that we've heard so much about recently from Liberal ministers?
Thank you so much for the question. I want to reiterate that we are developing a comprehensive Indo-Pacific strategy to deepen diplomatic and defense partnerships in the region, and that is why the Prime Minister put this important issue in my mandate letter. Canada remains committed to a consistent presence in the Indo-Pacific through consistent engagement and capacity building. And what does this include? Well, it includes a variety of military exercises with allies and partners such as Australia, the United States, and Japan. And the bottom line is that Canada is going to continue to promote regional peace and security in the Indo-Pacific.
Okay, I guess, where would you say we are in that process? Are we at the beginning stages of this strategy? Are we where we want to be?
Well, in your original question, you did mention the Chinese planes that were in the news very much this weekend. In fact, I made a comment that these aircraft did not adhere to international air safety norms, and their interactions are unprofessional and put the safety of our Royal Canadian Air Force personnel at risk. And our primary concern is the safety of our air crew. And these occurrences in particular have been addressed through diplomatic channels. But I will say that our Indo-Pacific strategy is increasingly important in this region. I'm actually traveling to Singapore this week, where I will be discussing Canada's Indo-Pacific presence and the importance of our military exercise with allies and partners such as Australia, the United States, and Japan, including the sail through of the Taiwanese Strait that we undertook in 2021 with the United States.
Thank you very much, Minister. Would now be a good time for Canada to make efforts to join the quadrilateral security dialogue?
Canada is very committed to a number of multilateral partnerships. And again, one of the purposes of my traveling to Singapore and participating in the Shangri-La dialogue, where I will be giving remarks at the final day of that conference, is to express Canada's commitment to multilateralism writ large, as well as to stability and security in that region. I will ask my Deputy Minister, Bill Matthews, if he has anything more to say on this.
No, that's fine, Minister. I will. We can always ask later after you have gone. Minister, Canada, we've been excluded from the Australia, UK, US, or what they call now the Three Eyes group on capability. Your government has said that that's because we don't want to operate nuclear submarines. But we know the government knows, but the government knows that the Australia, UK, US partnership is not just about submarines. It's about artificial intelligence and autonomy, cyber, quantum technologies, hypersonic and counter-hypersonic, electronic warfare, innovation and information sharing. In other words, the future of warfare. What is our plan to get into this, to the Three Eyes? Or is Canada planning on a strategy of isolation in the future security environment?
Thank you so much for that question. Let me start by saying that Canada has intricate and long-standing defense partners with the United States, with the United Kingdom, and with Australia, our close friends and allies. We coordinate particularly closely in a number of multinational organizations, and we will continue to do so. Again, part of the reason that I am traveling to Singapore this week is to reiterate the importance of these multinational partnerships. We are not isolated. I meet with my counterparts regularly, and I will continue to do this. We do this work across the board with our allies, and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Minister. But do you think that there are barriers in joining those alliances, like the Three Eyes, and could it be because of the delay in announcing our ban of Huawei?
Mr. Chair, I will say that our collaboration with our allies has been incredibly strong, especially over the last number of months, as we together respond to Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. On a number of occasions, I have met with my counterparts on a bilateral and multilateral basis. I will say that Canada has been at the forefront of a number of issues, including the Ukraine conflict, and we will continue to collaborate multilaterally and bilaterally with our allies in support of the international rules-based order.
Thank you, Mr. Motz. Mr. Fisher, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Minister, for being here today and for all the work that you have done and are doing. Minister, Russia's unprovoked illegal invasion of Ukraine has been something that you've been obviously focused on for these past few months. And I think members of this committee can all agree that we need to do everything that we can to support Ukraine. Now, I know that you've been in close contact with your Ukrainian counterpart to discuss Ukraine's military needs. In fact, half of the members in this committee were in Vilnius last week and heard from the defense minister in Ukraine, and he name-dropped you and said, and I don't want to paraphrase, but he said something along the lines of, my very best friend, Anita Anand, which was really wonderful to hear in front of the entire NATO delegation. Since your last appearance before this committee, you've announced a number of additional supports for Ukraine, including $500 million in Budget 2022. Can you please let us know what you've done so far to directly support Ukraine and to coordinate with our international partners?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for that question. And thank you to the member for his important work on this issue. Since February alone, we have made a series of announcements of additional military aid. $98 million announced on May 25th for 20,000 artillery rounds of 155 millimeter NATO standard ammunition, including fuses and charge bags. $50 million announced on May 8th for high-resolution satellite imagery, an additional 18 drone cameras and ammunition. The delivery of M777 howitzers and associated munition and training for our Ukrainian partners outside of Ukraine on how to use them. Anti-armor weapon systems and rocket launchers, heavy artillery, commercial pattern armored vehicles, and personal protective equipment such as body armor, gas masks, helmets, and other specialized pieces of military equipment. As you know, and as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, in this question, we allocated an additional $500 million. And before that budget, we had sent well over $100 million, and now we are well at over $260 million, including funds from the budget. We are working around the clock to allocate the remaining funds from the budget. And as mentioned in the question, I am in close contact with my Ukrainian counterpart to discuss the specific needs of Ukraine's army. An important contribution, in addition, that Canada has set up is a coalition air bridge with 2 CC-130 tactical aircraft to Europe to transport military equipment from Canada and our allies and partners to Ukraine. And we have actually delivered over 2 million pounds of aid, and this work continues every day. As Ukrainian heroes fight back against Putin, we will continue to help them defend Ukraine's territory and the rules-based international order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Switching gears for a second, the Arctic is of crucial importance to Canadian geopolitical landscape and to the people and communities of the North. Now, I know that you've made safeguarding the Canadian sovereignty in the Arctic a priority, and I know that it's in your mandate letter. There's a number of items in these main estimates that touch on this issue, and one of the ones I'll use for an example is the $340 million to continue funding construction efforts for the Arctic offshore patrol ships. Can you give us a bit more detail on the status of these ships, as well as maybe some other projects that are underway with regards to our sovereignty in the Arctic?
Bien sûr, merci pour
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question.
The sovereignty in the Arctic is secure and it's well established. We're taking action. We're making landmark investments to increase our ability to operate in the Arctic, including joint exercises in the Arctic, purchasing those 6 Arctic offshore patrol ships, and enhancing our capability to defend Arctic sovereignty with 88 new fighter jets. Last month, May 16th, in fact, I hosted a very productive security and defense dialogue with Arctic allies and partners from Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and the United States to discuss evolving security and climate dynamics in the Arctic, as well as Russia's unlawful invasion of Ukraine. Your question, Mr. Chair, specifically mentioned the Arctic offshore patrol ships, and I will just say those are integral to defending the North. We have 2 of those 6 ships delivered to the Royal Canadian Navy already, and as many of you already know, the HMCS Harry DeWolf recently completed a circumnavigation of North America. That's the first Royal Canadian Navy ship to do so since 1954. A third vessel is also in the water, and we look forward to its delivery this fall. In addition, This procurement project is helping to revitalize the Canadian shipbuilding industry by sustaining 2,000 jobs annually. That is why we are requesting $340 million in the estimates to continue funding construction efforts during the implementation phase activities of the project, including construction on ships 3 to 6. These ships are simply critical to enhancing the Navy's ability to assert Canadian sovereignty in Arctic and coastal waters, and we will always remain firm and unwavering in defending Canada's sovereignty, the peoples and communities of the North, and our national interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Madame Normandin, 6 minutes.
Ms. Normandin, 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister, thank you for your presence. It's always greatly appreciated. I'd like to start with the issue of recruitment and retention that we studied in committee. We know it's critical for the armed forces to improve the situation for recruitment and retention. I'd like to hear you as well on the initiatives included in the budget to reverse that trend. Is there anything specific you could put your finger on to say, well, that amount will be used for this precisely, that is recruitment and retention? Thank you for the question. We also have to make sure we have the right number of people, the right equipment, and the right support. And that's why we launched and are in the middle of launching many initiatives to attract and retain more people in the Canadian Armed Forces. This is primarily a program of reconstitution led by the Chief of Defense Staff, and there will be an initiative for retention that we will launch very soon.
Chief of Defense Staff to speak specifically to the budgetary aspects.
Si vous me permettez, Madame la
If you'd allow me, I'd like to take my time with you, and I'll ask the question to the Deputy Chief of Defense Staff later. I'd like to hear your views on the Arbour report that was just issued. We understand that you intend to implement 17 of the recommendations stated in that report. These are recommendations that are more or less cosmetic, changes of name. Others are more substantive and that could have an impact on the budget. I'd like to hear you more generally on the type of recommendations that you want to implement very quickly among the 48, perhaps with the numbers if you have them at hand. That's a very important question. I'd like to say, first off, that I accepted this report in its entirety. And I talked to the Prime Minister, and we fully agree about the important issues identified by Ms. Arbour. My priority, first and foremost, is to build an institution where everyone feels safe, protected, and respected. First off, we will implement 17 recommendations. That means recommendations about coming back to the House of Commons and giving it a progress report on our process. And I'd also like to confirm that we'll have an external monitor. Thank you very much. We could talk about the content of Judge Arbour's report, but also what it omits. Judge Arbour said she was rather disappointed that they stuck to the specific text of a report without looking at the spirit of it. Now, without making a recommendation, Ms. Justice Arbour talks about the report of Judge Fish about the Office of the Ombudsman and its independence. If the Ombudsman was more independent and reported directly to Parliament, perhaps for many years, we wouldn't have seen the tampering down of the Jonathan Vance scandal, for instance. Even though there's not a specific recommendation, do we hope to see more independence for the Ombudsman in the future?
I would like to say that we greatly believe in the importance of the role of the Ombudsman, and continuing to ensure the independence of the Ombudsman is very important to us, generally speaking. We will continue to maintain a productive dialogue with the Ombudsman. We deeply value the important services that his office provides to the defense team. We're committed to supporting the important work that he does. And je ne sais pas si mon sous-ministre.
I don't know whether my deputy minister has anything to add. Now, for the time I have left, I would like to point out there's an issue of depoliticizing this misconduct file. Would it be a good idea, in your opinion, yes or no, for the Ombudsman to report to Parliament rather than directly to you, Madam Minister?
Well, let me just say that I will be reporting directly to Parliament myself as a result of Madame Arbour's report. And I will do that prior to the end of 2022. In addition, in direct response to Madame Arbour's report, I will be appointing an external monitor that will oversee me and the progress in implementing the report in the most efficacious and expedient manner. So let's be clear, Madame Arbour was very careful to ensure that there were procedural safeguards in place to ensure the implementation of her report, and we are going to follow her recommendations in that regard.
Thank you,
Merci beaucoup.
Madame Normandin. Ms. Blaney, welcome to the committee. 6 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you to the Minister as well for being here today. I appreciate you having some time with us. I am the proud representative of the 19 Wing in Comox, and I just wanted to have a bit of an opportunity to ask you about an article that came out not too long ago where the senior officer of the base, one of the senior officers, was telling some of the members that perhaps the only way that they could find housing is to work with the North Vancouver Island Habitat for Humanity. Now, I don't want to say anything negative about the senior officer. I think they were providing a real alternative in a situation that is profoundly hard. Housing in our riding is hard to find if it's a rental or to purchase. The costs have gone up dramatically. We know that our military families have to travel quite extensively. We also know that in our area, there's a long relationship between the Habitat for Humanity and the 19 Wing, who have spent many years volunteering their time to help build houses for other people. But we also have to acknowledge that there is just not enough military housing. And I noticed that we're not seeing a substantive support for that in these estimates. So I could just ask the Minister, why isn't there a substantive amount of resources going into military housing when we know that military families have to travel from one part of this country to another and provide stability for their families, and if they have nowhere to live? And just so you know, Minister, there are many service members in my riding that are traveling in some cases an hour and a half just to get to work every day because of the lack of housing.
Mr. Chair, I thank the honourable member for the question, which is a good one. Clearly, she is outlining an issue that we are taking very seriously in the Canadian Armed Forces and at Defence more generally. She has clearly outlined an important issue facing not only Canadian Armed Forces members in British Columbia, but across the country. And I want, though, to indicate that we are taking this issue seriously. We are working with stakeholders to align resources and acquire additional housing. In 2022-23, for example, we are investing $55 million in residential housing for Canadian Armed Forces members. We are investing $445 million over the coming years to tackle this important issue. We've also put in place supports for our members when they relocate, because we know that that is something that is particular to members of the Canadian Armed Forces. We are, for example, reimbursing legal and real estate fees, and we're covering some expenses for dual residency for up to 6 months if a CAF member cannot sell their residence. So I just wanted to indicate to the member, I thank her for the question, but we are taking action on this. We do recognize that it is a problem. Thank you.
So if I could come back to that, though, Minister, we know that the residential housing unit numbers have gradually decreased since 2013, while the need has increased substantively, and that the Canadian Forces Housing Agency has identified a need for about 5,200 to 7,200 additional housing units across the country. That is pretty substantive, and we're not seeing the numbers follow that at all. And I'm just wondering, we know that retention and attraction continues to be a significant challenge, and I would assume that those things are correlated. If you have nowhere to live, if it's hard to move your family because there is nowhere to live, if you're having to have that lifestyle of driving an hour and a half away, which means you're missing up to 3 hours a day with your family because of that, it's going to damper people thinking that this is a good plan. So I'm just wondering, how are you addressing that ideal of retention and attraction and putting it in that idea of having housing? I hear what you're saying about the numbers that you're throwing out, but what we're seeing again and again is it's not being built. We're not seeing the commitment to it being built, and that means that it's getting harder and harder for our military families. I think we ask enough of them. So how are you going to address this in a more meaningful, substantive, and could you give a bit of a timeline? You threw out some numbers, but how long are the people in my constituency specifically going to have to wait till there's any housing built on the base?
Okay, to be clear, I'm not simply throwing out numbers. This is actual funding that we are committing to address the issue that you raised. But moving on, I will respond with specifics that we are undertaking in addition to the items I outlined just a moment ago. First of all, to ensure the post-living differential allowance effectively supports CAF members and their families and addresses affordability concerns, D&D is reviewing the actual policy, and we are undertaking a policy review to address retention issues, among a number of other things, and we know that housing and relocation is one of those things. In addition, the funding that I mentioned in my previous answer will go towards, and this is what I believe the member was specifically asking, we're going to be using that funding to address renovation projects to ensure the existing 11,000 or so housing units are functional and suitable. We're going to be constructing new housing units at bases and wings, including at CFB's Comox, Shiloh, and Dundurn. We are working on this as part of a comprehensive approach to recruitment and retention, and we know and will continue to reiterate that people are at the core of everything we do. That's why when I am at bases, I always meet with families, because families are at the heart of supporting our Canadian Armed Forces, and this was the case last week in Valcartier when I met with the families on the base right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. The minister has a hard stop at 4:30, and we have a 25-minute round. We have 26 minutes to do a 25-minute round. So I'm looking for you to stay on track, Madame Carrie-Lynn Finley.
I thought you were going to give me that
5
extra
minutes.
minute.
No,
Minister, thank you for being here. You mentioned in your remarks that in the months to come, you said there would be announcements about new funding opportunities, including on continental defense and modernizing NORAD. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify for me what you mean by new funding opportunities. Are these already included in the estimates we're talking about today, or are you saying you're going to be asking for further funding? And if so, in what amount?
Thank you so much. Modernizing NORAD, as you mentioned, is a priority for me and for our government. We will invest over $8 billion in budget 2022 for additional defense spending, and this will include over $6 billion for, among other things, continental defense. This builds on the $252 million that we committed through budget 2021. We will be continuing to come forward with a plan to modernize NORAD, and in fact, I am traveling to Colorado with the Prime Minister tomorrow to visit the North American site for NORAD.
Minister, you and the Minister of Procurement have said you are still negotiating the sale of F-35s, but as a member of the consortium, Canada gets the F-35 at the same price as the U.S. in the year of purchase. We understand Saab was debriefed on the F-35 competition last Friday. So why the continuing talk about a competition and process?
I'm going to say first and foremost that we are in the finalization phase of our contract negotiations for the F-35s. And that is something that our government takes very seriously given the needs of the RCAF. And we will move to finalize the process as soon as possible for the 88 future fighters. In terms of the specific question relating to Saab, I will ask my Deputy Minister if he could explicate further.
We can deal with that later, because while you're here, I want to make use of the time with you, if I may. Can you confirm that Canada is purchasing a block of F-35s from the scrapped Turkish purchase of Block 3 aircraft, while the latest model, the Block 4, is unavailable? Minister?
We are purchasing 88 future fighters from Lockheed Martin, and we are finalizing the contract at the current time.
All right, that's not an answer, but will you confirm that the maintenance and sustainment work on our F-35 will be done in the U.S. because Lockheed Martin controls the intellectual property of the aircraft?
The negotiations for the F-35 contract with Lockheed Martin are still ongoing with a number of the issues that you are mentioning. And in fact, those negotiations are being handled out of PSPC, and the minister there would be the more appropriate person to respond to these questions. Thank you.
I did ask during Committee of the Whole and didn't get answers. Right now, CAE does Canada's military pilot training. Do you support CAE and training pilots at home by a Canadian company?
We are very committed to ensuring that our pilots receive the training that they need. The competition is still ongoing, and I will ask my Deputy Minister if he could provide further details regarding those negotiations and the competition.
I'll ask questions of the Deputy Minister later. Thank you. But I am advised that the Future Aircrew Training Program has been weighted for either an Italian or British company to win and train pilots outside Canada. So the question is the government prepared to lose all those Canadian jobs at CAE and its partners to training Canadian pilots in Europe? Are you aware of the issue, Minister?
Of course, I'm aware of issues relating to the labor market in our country. And our policy, especially in terms of the mandate of Minister Champagne at ISED, is to ensure that we are continuing to support Canadian businesses to grow Canadian jobs, whether it's the National Shipbuilding Strategy or whether it is any other area of procurement. Canadian economic benefits always play an important factor in our competitions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madame Finley. Madame Lambropoulos, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister Anand, for being here with us, joining us today to answer some of our questions. I know we recently did a study on recruitment and retention, and that's a really key issue, and we should be focusing a lot on it. And I think that it has a lot to do with changing the culture of our Canadian Armed Forces as well. One of the first acts that you did as Minister of National Defence was accept Madame Arbour's interim report and recommendations to transfer sexual misconduct cases from the military justice system to the civilian justice system. And she also recommended in her final report that the criminal code sexual offenses should be entirely removed from the jurisdiction of the military justice system, and that they should be dealt with and prosecuted in the civilian criminal court. So I know that on Monday you accepted Madame Arbour's final report, and so I was wondering if you can outline or let us know what you'll specifically be doing in regards to this recommendation.
Well, thank you for the question. And you're right. My top priority is to build an institution where everyone feels safe, respected, and protected. Madame Arbour's fifth recommendation in her final report is that criminal code sexual offenses should be entirely removed from the jurisdiction of the military justice system and that they should be prosecuted in civilian criminal courts. This is a thoughtful and system-changing recommendation, and we will examine it in earnest. As you pointed out in your question, I had already accepted the interim recommendation of Madame Arbour in the fall of 2021. I want to reiterate the progress that has been made in terms of accepting that interim recommendation. First of all, in January, the RCMP began accepting transfers of new files from the Canadian Armed Forces. Second of all, in February, Quebec's Ministry of Public Safety advised their police force to accept new files and transfers based on their capacity and highlighted that a detailed protocol was in progress. Third, several municipal and local police forces have also accepted transfers on an ad hoc basis. We have made progress, but of the 49 cases that were referred to provinces and territories, 23 cases were declined. That's why I wrote last week to provinces and territories urging them to exercise their jurisdiction and accept these cases. I made clear that the path forward requires collaboration with the civilian law enforcement and justice systems. It is clear to me that more work needs to be done to implement Madame Arbour's interim recommendation in full, and that's why in my letter to provinces and territories, I confirmed that we are establishing a formal intergovernmental table to build durable transfer processes that will serve Canadian Armed Forces members well in the long term. And this will be a useful forum to discuss issues that have arisen so far. Finally, I will also be consulting with survivors and victims groups to determine the path forward. This is something I have continued to do since I was appointed as minister. It is a priority for me to be in touch with victims and survivors. And I do look forward to informing Canadians and parliamentarians by no later than the end of this year on next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I do feel that we're in good hands with regards to this specific recommendation and in terms of sexual misconduct cases and changing the culture of our armed forces. On that, with that being said, I do think that the Canadian Armed Forces do an incredible job and have played a crucial role in the security of Canada and Europe, especially of late. One of the very many contributions that the Canadian Armed Forces has made, a critical contribution that has most recently been made, is increasing NATO's deterrence posture in Europe through Operation Reassurance in the face of Russian aggression. And a few months ago, you announced the extension and expansion of Operation Reassurance. And so I was hoping you could maybe give us an update on the work that the Canadian Armed Forces have been doing in NATO's eastern flank.
That's sorry to interrupt, but the minister or the member has given you 10 seconds to answer a very important question. So I'm going to ask you to work it in response to some other question, if you don't mind, please. 2.5 minutes to Madame Normandin.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Minister. There's a recommendation in the Arbour report that drew my attention because the Royal Military College in Saint-Jean is in my riding. That's recommendation 29 that asks that we review the role of the colleges. Since the college is smaller, there are differences between Kingston and Saint-Jean. There are initiatives that were put in place. In the case of misconduct, they hired a social worker for sexual misconduct cases. But in Saint-Jean, there's happiness index that's higher in Saint-Jean than Kingston. So rather than throw out the baby with the bathwater and close military colleges, wouldn't it be a good idea to look at both of these colleges and look at the initiatives that worked well and see what would improve the situation of military colleges to maintain bilingualism, because we send everybody to civilian universities, we're going to probably lose bilingualism. So Judge Arbour said this was already an issue. It might even get worse. So is this part of the minister's vision? What could we improve rather than just pull the plug on military colleges? Thank you for the question. First of all, I am the chancellor, and I visited both colleges to be there for a convocation in May. And as you know, as you said, recommendation 29 in the Arbour report underscores the need to attack that issue. It's not a recommendation to close the colleges. It's a matter of examining the educational program, the curriculum in these colleges. So we're going to examine that recommendation, but we will act in response to that recommendation in order to create a learning environment that's more secure and good for our officers, candidates, and do what Madame Arbour has recommended. None of our student officers should be victims of misogyny, discrimination, or harassment, of course. But the recommendation is not to close the colleges or cancel programs. It's just a recommendation to examine these colleges, to create and build educational institutions for safety of our candidates.
We've already blown through the extra minute we had. Ms. Blaney, 2.5 minutes,
Thank you,
please.
Chair.
Yes.
So thank you again, Minister. I just have a question. In 2015 and 2017, the Liberal government promised CAF personnel and veterans that it would eliminate the archaic and sexist marriage after 60 clause from the Canadian Forces Superannuation Act. 6 years ago, in 2015, DND reported to the Regs Committee that it was amending legislation and regulations to remove the marriage after 60 clause, and that was on their to-do list. In 2020, the previous Minister of Defence wrote to the Regs Committee stating that a legislative change to repeal the gold diggers clause was needed, but didn't offer any commentary on how to move forward with that. It is clear that DND knows how to fix the problem, but the department is not putting forward any amendments to do so until this government directs the officials to work on it. And I just want to be really clear, there are some cases where couples have been together well over 15 years, and it means that they are either living in poverty because this military service person is giving up a significant part of their pension so that their loved one can have something when they're gone, or they're predicting a poverty-stricken future for their partner. It is ridiculous in my mind because it puts mostly elderly women at risk of homelessness and poverty and insults them by labeling them a gold digger. So I'm just wondering, Minister, if you plan to eliminate this clause from the pension legislation, or will the government continue, as it has since 2015, to just drag its feet?
Was the defense, I thought this was the Defense Committee, not the Natural Resources Committee.
Defense.
Yeah.
Je vais donner une réponse.
I will provide an answer here. Thank you for the question.
That the issue raised by the honourable member does impact spousal benefits for people who marry after the age of 60. We are looking at this issue, but it is dependent on central agencies, not D&D alone. And je vais passer la parole à M.
And I will give the floor to my Deputy Minister, Mr. Matthews, to explain this.
I can be very brief. We're happy to follow up, but my recollection on this issue is it is a lead of Veterans Affairs, but happy to confirm that and confirm they are indeed leading.
Apparently, Ms. Blaney doesn't agree with that.
That's why I will confirm.
Yes. Ms. Gallant, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will the cost of the NATO Climate Change and Security Center of Excellence count towards NATO's 2% of GDP allocation for defense?
We are still continuing to ensure we have all of the resources in place, and we will be hosting the NATO Climate Change Center as the Prime Minister announced in Spain last year.
Okay, I just wanted to know whether or not that's going to count towards the actual 2%, if it's going to go towards a climate change center instead of actual defense equipment. What's the estimated cost and projected allocation for converting land vehicles like troop carriers, LAVs, Bisons, TAPVs from fossil fuels to electric?
I will ask my Deputy Minister to explain on that point, please.
I'll be very quick on this one. We're engaging with all our suppliers to look at more efficient fuel for the vehicles. I cannot give you a cost at this stage, but we're in discussions with all providers to see what we can do to get more environmentally friendly fuel solutions.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that we're looking at fuel as opposed to making the vehicles lighter, because that doesn't do the trick either. Take, for example, the TAPVs. They have a crew compartment that is armored, but the engine block isn't. The frame is aluminum, and if they want to work on the engine, they have to actually stretch the frame. And if they're dismounting because the engine's gone because of a bullet, well, there's no point in having the armor troop compartment. Okay, will the NORAD modernization and early warning system be part of the Prime Minister's announcement when he attends NORAD this week?
Well, thank you for the question. I will be attending NORAD with the Prime Minister. It's a priority for us and for our government. As I mentioned, we are investing over $8 billion for new defense spending, and this includes over $6 billion for, among other things, continental defense. I'm in frequent contact with my U.S. counterpart, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, and we're building on the principles that Minister Sajjan agreed to with the same Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, last year in terms of enhancing command and control, enhancing surveillance, and ensuring the maintenance and upgrading of the systems that protect our continent.
With the threats from Putin on the use of nuclear devices, do we have enough of the radiation detection devices, both personal and for equipment, for the troops deployed to Eastern Europe?
Our troops that are deployed in Eastern Europe are part of a NATO mission there. And in fact, we lead the Enhanced Forward Presence Battle Group, and we are standing shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies.
Thank you,
so
Minister. But the question is, are our troops equipped with the radiation detectors, both personally for their body as well as their equipment?
Our troops, and indeed the NATO troops generally, have as their core mission to ensure the protection of NATO's eastern flank. They are well equipped, they are well resourced, and they are on the front lines, as it were, in protecting NATO's eastern flank, and we are leaving no stone unturned to ensure.
Our troops are doing a magnificent job, and they are training any of the Ukrainians inside the country who are battling. They attribute their successes to the training that our troops gave them. But my question is about whether or not our troops are adequately protected. Do they have, for example, the iodine pills? Should there be a launch or an explosion, or even accidentally hit the top of a nuclear facility when, like, just happened yesterday, nearly happened yesterday?
I'd just like to say that chemical, radiological, biological, and nuclear equipment is forward deployed. Thank you.
And how do we dispose of the CBRN equipment that we don't use? is it backfilled?
We conduct FP assessments for our personnel when they are deployed, and we support them accordingly, and we make sure that any equipment is properly adhering to safety standards regarding disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Final 5 minutes. We'll go back to Madame Lambropoulos. I cut you off from your last question. And then Mr. Robillard has a brief question as well. So a few minutes to Madame Lambropoulos.
I'll actually pass the time to Mr. Robillard.
Oh,
thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Robillard. It'll come on. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Merci.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Minister. I'm very pleased to see that finally I can express myself in my mother tongue, and I want to congratulate you for the excellent work that you produce since you were appointed minister. Madam Minister, like many Canadians, I was very pleased to see you announce that we're now going to the phase of finalizing the capacity project for future jet fighters. That's good news for all Canadians and for our military. Can you explain why this project for acquisition is so important for the Royal Canadian Air Force and for Canadians across the country, particularly for the Bagotville base? Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chairman. You're entirely right. That's very good news for the RCAF and for all Canadians. Our government is now closer to delivering a new fleet of 88 jet fighters that are on the cutting edge of technology for the RCAF. This is the largest investment for the RCAF for over 30 years. The F-35 is used by many NORAD partners and NATO partners and is a mature aircraft that is interoperable and capable. It will allow our pilots to use the most perfected equipment possible to protect Canada's sovereignty, including in the Arctic, and respect our commitments to NORAD and NATO. For example, to face unpredictable threats, we anticipate delivery of the first aircraft in 2025 at the earliest. And with regard to the bases such as Bagotville, the acquisition of these aircraft will have a number of advantages. For example, to prepare for the arrival of these new fighters, we are preparing for construction of facilities there and in Cold Lake. We need infrastructure upgrades to support the maintenance and operation of these new planes. The funds requested in the main estimates will allow us to continue the infrastructure projects, the new facilities for the jet fighters. Now, with regard to the economic advantages, we feel that the construction of the wing will generate over 900 jobs. That's very important, and we're very excited about this new supply for our country, for our contribution to NATO and NORAD as well. Thank you very much, Minister. And once again, congratulations for the way you express yourself in French. Excellent French. Thank you.
Robillard, and with that, it's 4:30, right on time. I thank colleagues for their cooperation. Madam Minister, I want to thank you for your attendance, and as you know, we're always open to visits by the Minister. So with that, I'm going to suspend, and we will reconvene as soon as the Minister signs off, and we'll start our 6-minute round with Mr. Allison. So we'll suspend for a minute. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Not only do you have questions, but you have to answer that philosophical one as well.
Well, I can assure you, being on Zoom, that the Minister did check out, so we're all good. It happened. It's real.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a couple of questions to our to the staff and to the ministers and the Vice Chief, the Defence staff. My question regards the Minister mentioned that in relation to our Arctic sovereignty, did she say there were 6 patrol ships that have been on order for this, specifically the Arctic?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So there are 6 Arctic offshore patrol ships being built for the Royal Canadian Navy. And there's also a 7th and 8th that will be used by Coast Guard, but we're obviously more interested in the first 6. And the 3rd one is in the water now. We're expecting it to be delivered to the Navy sometime this fall. And ideally, construction of number 6 will also start at some point during the calendar year, because there's multiple ships being built at the same time as they go through the process.
Okay, and when do you anticipate having that final 6 ship ready for the to patrol the Arctic?
I'm going from memory here. I'll say 2025, but my official Troy here is with me, and if I've got this wrong, he can correct me. I think I just saw a thumbs up, so 2025.
Perfect,
Actually,
great.
Deputy, 2026 would be
2026, there we go. Okay.
Okay, great. A lot of numbers floating around in terms of aid to Ukraine and what has been committed. Could you just recap for us the total amount of aid / equipment in terms of dollars and what those commitments are over the next couple of years, and then where exactly we are at that stage, that process?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I'll start, but I will turn to the CFO just to fill in some details in a moment. And I suspect the reason for some of the confusion is there was some immediate aid given when the conflict first broke out, and then there's since been the provision of ammunition as well as some weaponry in addition to some of the safety commitment that went early, and the Minister mentioned cameras. Budget 2022 also announced $500 million for the support of Ukraine, which was over and above what had already been given. And so that spending is ongoing. So I'll pause there and ask the CFO to actually give us a grand total.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. In total, so far, we have really 2 tranches. One is donations of both surplus material that we had and material we were using, what we call in service, and that amounts to almost $50 million worth of donations. And secondly, in terms of purchasing new equipment, so far we're tracking about almost $214 million in new purchases. And of course, that includes drone cameras, that includes armored patterned vehicles, that includes some satellite imagery and so forth. We have not completely consumed the newly announced $500 million, but we're working towards that.
Okay, so in total, what is the commitment over the coming years?
So we have, thank you for the question. We have committed, the Prime Minister announced $500 million in the budget of 2022. Prior to that, there was an announcement for $75 million. So the 75 is fully spent at this point. And of the $500 million, we've spent about $140 million. So we still have a little ways to go.
Okay. And just maybe one more addition to that. Of the 500, the intent is to spend it this fiscal year. So it's not a multi-year.
Okay, that was the clarification I was looking for. Thank you very much. Just a question. I know it's been suggested that the Canadian Forces chaplaincy service is going to be potentially suspended or scrapped. Can you have any comments on that? Is there anything that you're aware of on that?
I think the Vice probably has more to say than I do in this. So Vice, over to you.
Thank you very much for the question, Chair. I think as part of our examination of culture, we take a look at many of the determining aspects that help us in our culture. And the chaplaincy was certainly identified as an area because of the nature of religion and culture and spirituality as being an important part of culture. There's not a point, an assessment at this point that we are scrapping the chaplaincy, but certainly the services and the way in which the chaplaincy services the personnel within the CAF is something that we're continuously looking at and evaluating.
Okay, does that mean yes or no? Was that, you're just evaluating? Is that
We're not.
Is that your final answer?
My apologies if that seemed ambiguous. I did not mean it to be ambiguous. Certainly, I would say that we're not looking at canceling the chaplaincy, but how the chaplaincy services the Canadian Armed Forces and through what mechanisms is always under evaluation and will also continue to be so.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Okay, I think I've only got a minute left, so I'm just going to go back to Arctic sovereignty again. So, Deputy Minister Matthews, do you know? I mean, obviously, patrol ships are important. Would you also care to comment on what other things that we may be looking at in terms of satellites, sensors? You know, I mean, it's a very short period of time, but just thought processes on the Arctic.
Sure.
It's even a shorter period of time.
I'll be very quick, Chair. A lot of the future, up for discussion still in terms of any NORAD modernization, but there is ongoing work to upgrade and maintain the sensors that we have in the North Warning System.
Thank
Maybe
you.
Given time, I'll pause there.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Mr. May, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. There are a number of NATO-related expenditures in these main estimates, such as the NATO Security Investment Program and other common funded programs. Can you describe some of Canada's financial contributions to these common funded programs and how they benefit the Alliance?
Certainly, I will start and may turn to the CFO for some additional information if necessary, but you'll see it in the estimates under the grants and contributions. There is funding for our ongoing NATO work, and this work, the NATO common funding, is basically just to support the ongoing funding for NATO. Obviously, there's very live discussions every year about just how much money NATO does require from its members to properly function, and I think for obvious reasons that number is increasing. So it does add to training, it adds to operations. So that's just the basic NATO funding. If you're looking for specific operations, that would be outside of this money. So it is basically the core of NATO. Sherry, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, I would add, in fact, what you've described, Deputy Minister, is the core part of what we fund. About $157 million of the estimates is meant to go towards common funding, but there's another $62 million that goes to what's called NATO Security Investment, which includes basically the communications and the IAM infrastructure that supports it. And then finally, there's a small amount that also goes to logistics and centers of excellence. And I could say too, the Security Investment Fund funds initiatives such as the airborne early warning and ground surveillance and basically the expansion of NATO command. So it's all encompassing in that sense.
Thank you. How is National Defense using these estimates to, advance, victim-centric approaches to sexual misconduct, and how long will it take to get these programs up and running?
Maybe I'll insert a quick word or two and then pass to the Vice, but you will see money that was announced in previous budgets in these estimates. Minister's already touched on the new organization, or relatively new, around culture change, and there's ongoing programs for restorative engagement. The Vice may have more specifics to add on this.
Sorry, finding the unmute button here. Certainly the estimates does have money that's specifically related to, I would say, activities to support the SMRC through the grants and the contributions program, that submissions that you will see within the estimate itself, as well as the broader work, I would say, that has come through previous budgets to enhance and enable those capabilities moving forward, which continues to roll into our estimates that we have for this year. There is, of course, the broader culture change work that is underway within the Canadian Armed Forces, which goes to support that culture change, which is impactful and is essential to leading on the support for victims and support for CAF members more broadly. And so that also continues under the existing baseline funding that we have.
Also, in these estimates, National Defense is requesting funding to modernize and upgrade its information management and information technology platforms. How will these upgrades protect national defense's systems against cyber attacks from foreign actors like Russia?
We could probably take the rest of the time in this committee meeting to answer that question. And I think Shelley Bruce is with us. She may have something on the cyber front to add. But in terms of the upgrades being thought here or pursued here, think of a couple of things. Think of corporate systems, HR, finance, things like that. But also think of the technology that's used to share information amongst the various lines of service and how that needs to be well integrated, but also protected. But I think it might be worth turning to Shelley to see if she wants to add anything in terms of cyber defense in general.
Ms. Bruce, you're still on mute for some reason or another. Doesn't look like you're on mute, but your lips are moving and we're getting no sound.
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes,
okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. I would note that in the CSE portion of the budget for this year, we have a submission for a new year in a multi-year funding proposal that is allowing us to modernize aging cryptographic equipment and infrastructure that will allow us to safeguard classified information, including in the CAF systems. And of course, there are other initiatives related to more broadly Government of Canada information technology security. So we can elaborate a little bit more on that if you like, but in general, there are lots of good initiatives that are in play here to help protect the command and control systems for CAF.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, do I have?
You have 22 seconds.
Okay, I'll give that time back just to say thank you again for all of you for being here today and for all of the amazing work that you continue to do for Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. 6 minutes, Madame Normandin.
Ms. Normandin. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all the witnesses for your presence. I'd like to get back to the fighter jets. Of course, we'll have to train pilots for these jets. It takes time. I suppose the process is already somewhat underway. I'd like to know whether there's anything in the budget for flight simulators or budgeted for flight simulators. Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. In the main estimates for this year, there is money to continue with the project, and eventually there will be tools to develop a pilot training, but I don't think that there's anything specific this year. But I will give the floor to Troy if he wants to add something.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Deputy. You're correct. In the current year, there's no expenditures expected with training devices, but training devices will be part of the solution for the future fighter capability.
Merci. Alors peut-être dans la même.
Thank you. So perhaps in the same vein, do we know whether the flight simulators will be used are simulators that exist in Canada, or will this be outsourced to the U.S.? Has any comparison been made to see what the costs would be for each of the two options?
Je dirais que
I would say that products to train pilots are something specific to the aircraft we'll buy. So I imagine it's something that will be managed in the United States. But for the F-35 project in general, there are many opportunities for Canadian industry to participate. I don't know whether there are any companies in Canada that have already done this, but perhaps Troy can have something to add.
The training solution will be established at the bases in Cold Lake and Bagotville ultimately. The initial transition training for our aircrew will have to take place in the U.S. where those capabilities already exist, and that will give us time to set up our long-term solution here domestically.
Okay. Et encore là-dessus,
The same topic, let's say there's CAE in Quebec that used to offer training for the current fighter jets. Was it completely excluded that this kind of training could be done here and keep these jobs, where there is a intellectual property issue with Lockheed Martin that prevents us from doing this locally?
je dirais qu'il y aura.
I would say that it's a combination of factors. It's quite clear that during the project, the benefits for Canadian industry were very significant, and that's part of the process. But as we've already said, the contract has not yet been negotiated in detail, so we're waiting for further details. Okay, I'd like to get back to the question I put to the minister earlier. I'd like to hear you as well. Could you point specifically in the budget to anything that was provided for retention and recruitment? What does it correspond to exactly?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. There are not exact sums dedicated to recruitment and retention, but we have many initiatives that continue without a fixed amount in the budget attached to it. And it's through the efforts of military personnel who are improving the tool for recruitment and the processes to bring the recruits into the forces so that it's faster and not as slow as it is right now. Thank you very much. And with regard to the Arbour report, the minister has already announced her intention to have an external monitor that will look after the follow-up to the recommendations. I'm wondering if that's also part of the budget, this whole team that will take care of the follow-up on the recommendations from the Arbour report. I don't have an exact plan in front of me right now, but as the minister said, that is a priority in order to establish this external advisor for the minister. And I imagine that the amount attached to this service will be negotiated with the individual who is selected, appointed for that role. At that point, we'll have some notion of how much is needed for the contract. Thank you, Ms. Normandin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I'll be coming back to you, Mr. Matthews, because it sounds like we have some things to figure out here. So you may not know this, but of course I'm a normal member on the Committee for Veterans Affairs, where we have just completed a study on the marriage after 60 clause. And I just want to figure this out because Brigadier General Tattersall came to our committee and said this, and I will quote it. The Minister of National Defence under the Canadian Forces Superannuation Act is responsible for the overall management of the pension plan, including the financial management of Canadian Armed Forces pension funds. So I'm just wondering if you could clarify that, because one of the challenges I'm having right now is this is from, of course, somebody who works in national defense, who also said in her statements to us that the minister has not yet been briefed specifically on this issue. We also heard from Veterans Affairs staff, multiple ones, and I'm willing to quote them as well, that said that the marriage after 60 clause belonged under national defense. And now I'm here sitting in this room listening to you tell me that it's actually Veterans Affairs. Now, I agree there definitely is some confusion. So if you could just clarify that. But the next question that I have is, how do these things get worked out? Because I am not clear where they belong. There's a lot of people advocating for this to change. It has a huge impact on veterans, on members that are serving, and it also has big impacts on people who are working for the public services. All of these folks cannot get married after 60, and if they do, they have no supportive benefits left for the survivor. And so this issue continues to go for on and on and on, and nobody lays claim to it. So if I could just get clarity on how the multiple agencies communicate to one another to figure out who this belongs to, so that people who are fighting to get it changed know who to speak to.
Maybe I'll offer a few things here, Mr. Chair. Number one, I do apologize because it is confusing and it is joint to a certain extent. So maybe I would offer that just to be perfectly clear, we get back to the committee and to the member to kind of show on paper the roles and responsibilities so we all have a common understanding. Given that the rule in question is about retired members. Yes, the Minister of Defence is responsible for the financial aspects of the plans, but my understanding is that Veterans has a role in terms of the benefits, and so that's why it is a bit of shared responsibility. And the final point, and I will then turn back to the member because I suspect she has more questions, is my more recent history on this was back in 2019. There was a Veterans benefit announced specifically to compensate members who were in this situation of getting married after 60. And I know Defence was working actively with veterans to better understand the numbers around the survivor community, but it's a related issue, but different than the one you're raising.
Well, thank you. And that's, of course, the Survivors Fund, $150 million of which none has been spent, and none of those people have had any supports or help. So I appreciate you getting back to the committee, and I'll look forward to that, and we'll come back again. So one of the things that I also have a lot of concern about, as I mentioned earlier, is the issue of housing. We know that in my riding, Comox has the second highest average market rental rate of all of the different wings and bases across the country. So I'm just wondering, as you're looking at building housing, residential housing units on these locations, are you addressing that issue of where the market rate is so high that it's very hard for people to find a house, to buy or to rent? I want to be really clear. Those are often options. And like I said, people are in some cases moving very far away because there is nowhere else for them to live and having to travel. So when those actual steps are taken to prioritize, is that taken into consideration, the market rental rate?
I think demand is certainly a driver of where we spend the resources, Mr. Chair. So I know Comox was mentioned earlier. There were 12 new ones built this May, and there's 12 more in the works. And the member's quite right that depending on the geographic location in the country, there is, and the personal situation of the CAF member, there is a different interest in renting versus buying and getting access to Armed Forces provided housing. Vice may have more to add on this point, but logic would say that market conditions drive where you spend your money, as well as the condition of the existing houses as well, and do they need to be renovated?
Okay, so one of the discussions that I heard the minister start talking about is looking at military housing and privatization. And I'm just wondering how those things, working with private groups to figure out how you're going to build that. So can you tell the committee what models are you using? I noticed in the report that they talked about some different countries that are using this model. I'm really concerned about that because if you move into the private sector, it will impact service members. And so one of the things that we know a lot of service members say that they like looking at military housing because it's affordable housing. And of course, if we're asking people to move across the country, you know, I've heard many, many times from the military that BC means bring cash because it's so expensive to live there. So how is that taken into consideration if you're going to be moving into a private model?
So, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll just add a few words if I could. And the member is absolutely correct about military housing being part of the solution space that we're taking a look at to make the cost of living, to make moving and the mobility that is part of the military lifestyle more affordable and less onerous for families as they move across the country. So the establishment of more residential housing units and improving the quality of existing residential housing units absolutely is part of the solution, but it is more than that, of course. It is also about the cost of living and whether or not then there are benefits and allowances that should be considered to make access to the private markets where there is housing that is available, because that is often an issue as well. But making access to getting access to those markets and making it affordable to have access to those markets, something that is possible for CAF members.
Leave it there. Ms. Finley, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here today. I'll go to Deputy Minister Matthews, as the Minister referred this question to you. Is the government prepared to lose all the Canadian jobs at CAE and its partners to having our Canadian pilots trained in Europe, such as Italy and Britain?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. That competition is ongoing. Economic benefits to Canada are a big part of it. I really can't say much more than that. Troy may have something to add, given that he tends to run all things procurement. Troy, anything you wish to add on this front?
Thank you for the question. We have expressed an expectation that the training that's currently conducted in Moose Jaw, Southport, and Winnipeg will continue in those locations.
Continue run by whom?
As the Deputy Minister had expressed, the competitive process is underway right now, and will determine who provides the services in the future.
So through the Chair, you're suggesting that there might be European companies training them here in Canada? Is that what you're saying? That's a possibility?
Mr. Chair, the qualified suppliers in the competitive process include Babcock Canada and Leonardo Canada.
Thank you. To the Deputy Minister, will the Prime Minister be announcing that Canada is joining missile defense?
I cannot comment, Mr. Chair, on future announcements of the Prime Minister.
The U.S. is retiring 10 Freedom-class littoral warships with fewer than 10 years on the hulls. They're heavily armed and have a similar crew to our aging coastal defense vessels. Have there been any discussions to acquire them from the U.S. for coastal defense?
Mr. Chair, I have not been involved in any discussions on that front, but I will ask Troy if he's aware of anything.
No, I'm not.
I am told our Harpoon anti-ship missiles are older, and if we provided them to Ukraine, that the U.S. might upgrade ours to much newer models for very little cost. Can someone confirm that? Mr. Crosby?
Mr. Chair, that is not my understanding.
Right. Some $15 billion in defense spending was included in the budget, but not declared or attached to anything. Why, and what is it for, then?
If you're referring to Budget 2022, I think it's there's money for Ukraine, obviously, in there, as well as some money for NATO modernization. And we've got the CFO here, so she can, not NATO modernization, NATO membership, but the CFO can articulate what else is in there.
I'm sorry, but my understanding is that the monies for Ukraine are not part of this $15 billion.
You are correct that the estimates trail the budget. So the money that was announced in budget 2022 is not in these main estimates. If you're looking for what's different in these main estimates versus the previous year, you'll see increases for the project around the Canadian Surface Combatant as it continues to advance. You'll see increases for the Joint Support Ship because it's hitting a higher pace than the previous year. On the operating side, it's up due to wage increases for members of the Canadian Armed Forces. And there's also a 3% escalator clause in there that actually bumps up defense resources to reflect inflation. So that's, if you're looking for a comparison of this year's main estimates versus the previous year, those are the main drivers.
Thank you. Speaking of surface combatants, that program has grown in costs from $60 billion to an estimated $100 billion. Has there been any thought given to an off-the-shelf foreign purchase?
That number, Mr. Chair, is not one that we're working with. I think the important part about the surface combatants, it is going to be the workhorse for the Navy for the next 20 years. There needs to be a lot of capability loaded onto that ship. We are still in the design phase, although getting close to the end. It certainly is a complicated ship, but a very important ship in terms of meeting the needs of the Navy.
My understanding, Deputy Minister, is that the combat system has been declared U.S. eyes only, and all the Canadians working on the combat system have been let go. Can you confirm that?
That is not my understanding, Mr. Chair, but I will turn to Troy to see if he has anything to add.
Mr. Chair, it's not my understanding either. We do have Lockheed Martin Canada involved in the program, as well as a number of other Canadian suppliers that will provide equipment to the combat system. There is integration work and the involvement of the U.S. Navy for certain aspects of the combat system solution, but there will certainly be Canadian involvement, not only for the initial delivery, but for in-service support as well.
Thank you, Ms. Finley. Mr. Fisher, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to all of our officials for being here for this hour and providing us with this information. We did a study on retention and recruitment, and I know when you're doing estimates, you get a little bit of leeway from the chair on topics, but and I know this one does pertain to the estimates, so I want to know what tailored methods and programs are being used to recruit Canadians into the Canadian Armed Forces from backgrounds that we may not traditionally recruit from or traditionally don't enter the Canadian Armed Forces through. We talked about how to reach out to more Canadians with regards to recruitment. Is there something specific, a program or a method that we are utilizing right now to reach those goals?
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. And I would say that I believe when General Brody was speaking to the committee previously, she had outlined some of the initiatives to take a look at doing specific focused recruiting in with specific groups moving forward that really focus on appealing both to the interests as well as targeting the interest via the communications mechanisms and mediums which are mostly used by the populations that we are looking for going forward, be they technical communities, be they women, be they members of minority communities from within Canada. And so there are a number of focused and targeted approaches to appeal to various parts of the community as part of the recruiting session. And we can provide greater detail on what those are if that is necessary.
Thank you for that. I had a chance to just chat a little bit about the Arctic with the Minister earlier. When we talk about growing strategic competition in the Arctic, we've heard for years that we need to do more to ensure that we can protect our sovereignty in the North. With Russia's actions in Ukraine, anxiety over this issue is possibly higher than it has been for many decades, particularly amongst Canadians living in the northern Arctic regions. What kind of investments are being supported through these estimates that are furthering the CAF's ability to operate in the North, and how will these estimates benefit northern communities?
Maybe I will start, Mr. Chair, and the Vice may have things to add. So I think we've already touched on the importance of the Arctic Offshore Patrol ships and the voyages that they've already taken, and more to come on that front. So presence is important. The other one I would flag is the ongoing maintenance of the North Warning System, and that work is important. And we've also discussed that there is, ongoing discussions about NORAD and continental defense modernization. So more to follow on that as well, but it's premature to say anything beyond that at this stage. Vice, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that then the exercising that we do in the north, as well as the activities both within Canada and Canadians and with our allies in the north, is also part of a demonstrating sovereignty and demonstrating of our capability to exercise in the north. And part of defense is deterrence and demonstrating that you have capabilities to operate and to respond. And that is an active part of what we are doing when we engage in northern activities and northern operations.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Madame Normandin, 2.5 minutes.
Ms. Normandin, 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much. I'd like to hear these witnesses about the drones. In Lithuania, we noted that the public collected $5 million to buy a Turkish one. Quebec is also recognized as being a leader in drone technology. So I'd like to hear you about what could emanate from the budget when it comes to drones. Are we targeting search and rescue primarily with drones? Are there other opportunities for armed drones, for example?
Start with this and certainly say that I think remotely piloted vehicles and drones are a part of the operational landscape that we see in military activities and operations. And we have projects underway within our own portfolio that deal with that. As it pertains to Ukraine, what we have seen is certainly they have expressed an interest, and the donations that were made were related to the cameras that were associated with the drones that the Ukrainians were operating, and that was provided as part of the Ukrainian donation. But it's, if you'd like more information on the RPAS project, perhaps I could pass the floor to Mr. Crosby.
Thank you for the question. The remotely piloted aircraft system project competition is underway. Bids are due on in mid-August, and the resulting remotely piloted aircraft capability will largely be focused on providing intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, basically awareness in the north and off of Canada's coasts into the future. The remotely piloted aircraft system will have a precision weapon capability, which would of course be subject to the usual rules of engagement that apply to any such platform, whether it be crewed or uncrewed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je pense qu'il me reste.
Thank you. I think I only have 15 seconds left, so I'll give away my time.
Thank you. Madame Blaney, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to ask a couple of questions, two in fact. The first one is around if DND will be able to meet its objective of 25% of women joining in 2026. We know that that number continues to be elusive and we haven't gotten there yet. So I'm just wondering if there's any specific work being done in terms of research, looking at equipment. We know that's been a big issue. I've heard from veterans for a long time. I know it's getting better, but we know that a lot of equipment was not built for a woman's body, and it's changing. Just wondering how that work is doing, and what are the key things that women are indicating they need to have to be looking at the military in a meaningful way. And the second question that I have is around systemic racism. I've heard from many veterans who went through the military and had some really astonishing negative things happen because of where the community that they came from. So I'm just wondering what's happening in DND right now to uncover what has happened and figure out processes that are a little more fair. We know at this point that if it's somebody that you're directly reporting to, it can be very hard, just like it is for anybody who's from a minority group to come forward and talk about the situation that's happening in a meaningful way. So I'm just wondering what kind of work is being done on these two files.
Perhaps if it's all right with the chair, I'll start on the first part as it pertains to women in recruitment. The target of 25% women within the Canadian Forces, I think, is a goal that we have been striving towards, but one which I think will be challenging for us to meet by 2025. Currently, I have our intake that we had in the 2020 to 2022 year. We had a 15.6% women of the over 8,000 women that were over 8,000 people that were recruited into the Canadian Armed Forces. And as you know, we are very much putting in place programs which I would say when we have female candidates to meet the qualifications to join the Canadian Armed Forces, then they are brought forward as candidates both into the Royal Military College as well as into the ranks, so that we can continue to try to prioritize the placement of female applicants into the Canadian Armed Forces. As well, during the time of, I would say, COVID, we had a little bit of a pause as well on trying to focus on what it is that, and listening to the women's voices of what they need within the Canadian Armed Forces. There was a Woman in Force program that we have in place, which is really about trying to give women voices to bring forward the issues that they see as barriers for their service moving forward. But we also do not wish that the onus is on...
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Apologize. Ms. Gallant, 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there seems to be a focus on the officers graduating from the military colleges when it comes to homing in on cases of sexual misconduct. Do you understand, or do you have an understanding of why that would be? Why would they home in on people from RMC on allegations?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who the honourable member is saying is the they.
Arbor in her report.
Oh, thank you. I believe that was an observation Madame Arbor made simply through her examination of different communities within the Canadian Armed Forces. And so this was as it pertained to her examination of the military colleges, but she also obviously engaged with people of all ranks across the
you're off base totally. But so the military police have as their head the Provost Marshal, right? And
that is correct.
Who does the Provost Marshal report to?
Under the National Defence Act, the Provost Marshal is administratively responsible to myself, the Vice Chief of the Defence Staff.
Okay, so if there were an accusation, an allegation, a grievance against the Vice Chief of Defence Staff, what would be the recourse for the individual who's making the charge?
Well, grievances aren't dealt with by the Provost Marshal, so that would be through different administrative processes, through the chain of command of the individuals of the member. If it pertained to an allegation of a violation of the Code of Service Discipline, the Provost Marshal would indeed look into that issue.
Okay. Well, I hope that the Provost Marshal does indeed look into grievance number 0040096. But more to the point, let's get back to RMC. So what is playing out in the accounts that we are reading are that there's sort of a protectorate from one generation of RMC graduates to the next. In one instance, our kids, our recruits, cadets are told to report any misconduct or harassment, and they do, then they're assigned an assisting officer. Then the months go by, and the cadet is told to withdraw the complaint or else. It's best for their future career. And when the cadet decides to take it to the top and follow through to make sure justice is done, it turns out that the judge is that assisting officer who was supposed to be giving help to that cadet. And now we find that we have people who have the grievances, and the whole military is getting involved by attacking, for example, their LinkedIn. It's kind of an asymmetric warfare about against anyone who makes an allegation in sexual misconduct or harassment. Has there been any plan or any discussion on how we can stop that cycle, harassing the individual who puts forward the complaint, especially when ultimately, when it comes to a legal matter, a charge, it falls in your lap?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I'm not at all familiar with the circumstances because it sounds like it's a specific set of circumstances that the member is speaking about. What I can say is that we certainly do take concerns and complaints very seriously within the Canadian Forces, and there are a number of different avenues through which those concerns are brought forward, be they violations of the Code of Service Discipline, whether it is a complaint about a behavior. They have different mechanisms for taking those forward, and we take that quite seriously.
This isn't isolated to one or two cases. People who bring them forth have connections to their LinkedIn, and then people who are in areas of command and their underlings start visiting and harassing and doing things to their social media to beat them down and have them withdraw their complaints. Now, I just wondered if you were aware of that, and what would you do now that you do know, putting an end to the off-base harassment that goes on of the people who make the complaints?
Difficult. I just have to intervene.
No.
That's an extremely difficult question to answer without some specific.
It's a general question. It's more than one case.
Well, is the vice chair able to respond to the question with some specificity?
I'm afraid I can't respond with any specificity because I'm not aware of the specifics. What I would say, though, is that that type of intimidation of somebody who brings forward a complaint is certainly not acceptable. And in those instances where it appears that complainants are being intimidated or harassed, it's important that that type of a behavior is the individuals are held accountable for that type of behavior.
So, Ms. Gallant, if in fact you have some information that they would help the vice chair respond to your question in a kind of a meaningful and detailed way, can you forward it to her?
I shall. It's more or less that the aspect of a closed loop system, particularly with the students who go to RMC. They lodge their complaint, they get an assisting officer, and that the assisting officer ends up being ultimately the judge. So they don't really have free recourse or representation.
Okay, I take the point, but for the vice chair, that's a pretty difficult question to answer without having a little more detail. I'm going to go to Mr. Robillard. 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question may be for Mr. Matthews. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the destabilizing Russian presence in cyberspace have highlighted the need to reinforce our cyber defense. In the main estimates, the department is asking for $798 million. That's a net increase of $83.9 million compared to last year's main estimates. Could you tell us a bit more about the work that the communications security establishment has undertaken to protect Canadian cyberspace and our national interests. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, it would be wiser to have Ms. Shelley Bruce answer this question since she is the leader of that organization. So, Shelley, you have the floor.
Bonjour, merci pour.
Hello, thank you very much for the question.
Reinforce that our budget is significant, almost $800 million and a 12% increase over last year. I mentioned earlier that some of that funding is for cryptographic equipment, but also to increase the security and reliability of Government of Canada systems. More generally, though, there is an investment for our foreign intelligence program, and based on our mandate, we do have a really interesting aperture into what is happening from the cyber perspective. What are the cyber threats that are playing out, especially those linked to the Russia-Ukraine conflict? We are seeing what kinds of activities are happening for intelligence gathering purposes, which ones are disruptive, which ones are destructive, and which ones are in preparation and planning phases. And from that information, we are able to pass that information, the cyber threat details, indicators, both to Ukraine and our allied and NATO partners, but also to Canadian critical infrastructure owners and operators. And having this information ahead of any materialized threats allows them to protect their systems and to put in place defenses that can withstand some of the attacks that we might anticipate.
Thank you, Madame. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Robillard, and we do have about 10 minutes. Let me just lead off with a couple of questions that I have, but maybe members could indicate a minute or two of questions that they might have as well while we've got this group assembled. The $500 million that's allocated to Ukraine, will that count towards the 2% GDP?
I may have to check with the CFO. My suspicion is not, but she's nodding yes. She says yes, it will. So there we go.
Okay. Well, we got a yes and a no on the same question.
I would go with the CFO on this one, Mr. Chair.
Probably true. Okay. Now, the main estimates between the estimates to date and the main estimates for 2023, it kind of barely moves the needle as far as moving towards debt to GDP, or not debt to GDP, but the 2% goal, which we've all committed to. So I'm a little concerned that we are in a war situation. We probably are not as aware of it in North America, but for those of us who are in Europe, World War III has started. And I just wonder whether with this budget presentation we should continue to have the luxury of time, given that we are going to be asked to step up in a fairly substantial way, and that is a foreseeable expectation. So my question, as much as a comment, your budget presentation barely moves the needle towards 2%. Can you give this committee some explanation of that?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. The estimates reflect what the government has set aside in previous budgets, and they effectively play catch-up. We did mention earlier today some of the potential coming attractions, including the defense policy update, as well as work on continental defense and NORAD modernization. Those would be key future indicators of the government's intent in terms of spending on defense.
When you do your defense policy update, are you going to do that in isolation from other security concerns?
Can you clarify?
Well, for instance, there's a lot of security concerns that CSIS looks after, that CSE looks after, that CSE is obviously here, but it's becoming security writ large. That things that previously fell into a neat little military silo don't necessarily fit there. So the question is, when you're doing your defense policy update, are you also taking into consideration and maybe making as a a co-equal concern, larger security concerns?
So, Mr. Chair, I think what I would say at this stage is a key part of the policy update is any update to the threat environment. And as you have just touched on, the threat environment is certainly more complex than it was. And so we do engage with relevant partners in terms of properly articulating that threat and what it will lead to. Stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. And it's moving very quickly. A final question, Mr. Crosby. Military inflation. We're obviously living in an inflationary environment in our own non-military lives, but I'm assuming that the demand on military equipment is even more extraordinary given the state of the war. Can you give us a working idea of what military inflation will be for this year? Will be 6%, 7%, or greater than that?
Mr. Chair, it's recognized, as the question alludes to, that we're going to see inflation higher, certainly higher than the Consumer Price Index, which is typical for defense procurement, and higher than we would have forecast a year ago. Our allies are also seeing the same sorts of trends as we move forward, and industry has only so much capacity to respond to the demands that they're seeing coming now. From various countries for various capabilities. That could result in higher inflation yet than we expect, but I think we'll have to wait and see how that plays out in the coming months.
But Mr. Crosby, that's almost a certainty. We'll be spending more money for less product, and given the budget that's presented here, the inflation will eat it rather rapidly. I'm using up time from colleagues, and they're going to go and yell at me, I'm sure. I see Madame Normandin has a 1-minute question.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'll hitchhike on something you raised, Mr. Chairman. We committed ourselves to 2% with NATO for defense, and we see that year after year there are supply issues that mean that the budget is not fully spent. We talked about $1 billion going back into the Treasury. So in the 2022-23 objectives and budget, what's been put in place to improve this supply system?
Mr. Matthews, your...
Oui, merci. Merci.
Thank you for the question. First of all, in the framework of national defense, if we don't spend the money, we can keep it for the following years. But as the chairman just pointed out, with factors such as the increase in costs, inflation, there will be an impact, but it is something important nonetheless. The second thing is that national defense receives an increase of 3% every year to reflect inflation.
We're coming out of a year where spending was difficult period of time because of COVID. It impacted our suppliers. We are pressing our suppliers and also collaboratively discussing with them what are their plans to deliver. And we are often hearing about labor shortages. We are often hearing about increases in raw materials. It's an ongoing discussion, and how we together tackle those risks that industry is facing and ensure that defense gets the capability it needs is something that I would encourage committee members to ask us every time we're here, because it is a real challenge in terms of getting delivery given the current labor markets and economies.
Mr. May, final question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just sort of changing gears a little bit here. We've heard that D&D's greenhouse gas emissions have increased over the past few years, while at the same time we've seen an increase in the need for CAF due to climate change issues, which again will undoubtedly further increase emissions. How do you plan to reconcile these pressures to ensure that we hit D&D hits their goal of zero emissions?
Maybe a couple of quick points. I know the natural instinct when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions is to talk about jet fuel and fuel for various capabilities. When the CAF is called into service, they need to deploy the assets we have at hand, and that will continue. Where we can really focus is on the greenhouse gas emissions that come from our buildings. We have an awful lot of really old buildings, really old warehouses. If we can streamline those, modernize them, make them more energy efficient, that will be where the bulk of our greenhouse gas emission reductions will come from, and it's doable. And there's projects underway on the East Coast to make some of those facilities more efficient as well. The CFO may have more to add here, but I would focus in on infrastructure as opposed to planes and trucks. Sherry, anything to add there?
Well, just to say that you're exactly right, Deputy Minister, that our focus has been on what we can do, which tends to be in infrastructure. For example, these estimates are requesting access to funding to help us modernize one of our largest laboratories, research laboratories in Valcartier. And as far as I know, we're actually on track to achieve 40% reduction by 2025. So we are making progress.
Thank you. With that, Mr. May, that is close to bringing our meeting to an end. I want to, on behalf of the committee, thank each and every one of you for your patience over these 2 hours, and appreciate your availability to the committee. And I'll let you sign yourselves out. Just to remind colleagues, tomorrow morning we're meeting with the Danish Defense Committee. It's in room 025B, I think that's correct, and West Block. On Wednesday, I'm rather hoping that we can deal with the threat assessment report, finish that off. And if we have any kind of time available, I'd like to be able to try to get at least a cut at the recruitment and retention report as well. It may be available as early as this time tomorrow, and then we can take. Look, it's a short report, 30 pages, and there's some chance that we might actually be able to deal with it. If we deal with it on Wednesday, then there's an even better chance that we can report it. So, hence my.
When will we see the draft?
We may see it as soon as tomorrow afternoon.
And you want us to deal with it Wednesday afternoon?
And yeah, well, you read quickly.
Just you, Darren. The rest of us will be trying to catch up.
I've got confidence.
I'm looking at my schedule. I don't see a lot of openings.
Do it during question period. Yeah. With that, meeting is adjourned.